The night was cold for March. St. Patrick's Day had just ended in Boston. The city was sleeping off the party. At the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, a young security guard named Rick Abath sat at the desk. It was quiet. The old Venetian palace was filled with ghosts and shadows and priceless art. And Abath was 23 years old. He was in a rock band. This was just a job. Just after 1 a.m, the buzzer rang. Abath saw 2 police officers on the security camera. They said they were responding to a disturbance. That was the first mistake. Boston police policy was to call the station, not just show up. But Abath was young. He let them in. That was the second and final mistake. The men weren't cops. They were thieves. They overpowered Abath and the other guard on duty. They wrapped duct tape around their heads and eyes. They led them to the basement and handcuffed them to pipes. Then, for 81 minutes, they owned the museum. They walked through the ornate galleries with box cutters and knives. They didn't just steal the art. They brutalized it. They sliced Rembrandt's The Storm on the Sea of Galilee from its frames. They cut out his only seascape, a masterpiece of light and terror. They did the same to A Lady and Gentleman in Black. They took a Vermeer, the concert, one of only 34 known to exist. It is now considered the most valuable stolen object in the world. They took a Monet. They took a Degas. They took an ancient Chinese beaker. The choices were strange. They left behind a Titian, arguably the most valuable piece in the museum. They tried to take a Napoleonic flag, but struggled with the frame. In total, they stole 13 pieces of art. The estimated value is $500 million. It remains the largest property theft in history. The next morning, the world discovered the crime. The museum staff found the empty frames. The FBI arrived. The investigation began. And for over 30 years, that's where the story's been stuck. A beginning, a middle, but no end. The leads went cold. The suspects died. The theories piled up like old newspapers. The Boston mob, the IRA. An inside job. A lone mastermind. The art is gone. The thieves are phantoms. But what if they left something behind? Not a fingerprint. Something bigger. Something that in 1990 was almost as useless as a ghost story. But today, with new technology, it might just be the key. On the frame of the stolen Rembrandt, the one they left behind on the floor, investigators found a palm print. It didn't belong to any of the museum staff. It didn't belong to the guards. It was a clean print, left by someone who had no business touching that frame. It was a clue, hiding in plain sight, waiting for the world to catch up to it. The investigation in the early days was a whirlwind of confusion. The FBI had hundreds of leads, and they all went nowhere. The city of Boston in 1990 was a different place. The mob still had real power. Names like Whitey Bulger were whispered with fear. The initial focus naturally fell on organized crime. These were the guys who had the resources, the audacity, and the network to pull off something this big. One of the first major theories centered on a crew out of Dorchester, led by a mobster named Carmelo Merlino. The theory went that Merlino's crew did the job, intending to use the art as a bargaining chip to get one of their guys out of prison. Well, it was a classic gangster move. The problem was the guy they wanted to free was released before they could make the trade. So they were stuck with $500 million worth of art that was too famous to sell. Informants pointed fingers, deals were whispered. The FBI chased Merlino and his associates for years. They put them under surveillance, they wiretapped their phones, they heard a lot of talk, a lot of boasting, but they never heard the one thing they needed: a confession, or a clear indication of where the art was. Merlino died in prison. His associates grew old and died too. The trail grew colder. Then there was Robert Gentile. He was an aging mobster from Connecticut. The FBI became convinced he was the key. An informant claimed Gentile had access to at least some of the paintings. The widow of another mobster said her husband had given 2 of the paintings to Gentile before he died. The FBI raided Gentile's home multiple times. They dug up his yard. They found a secret ditch beneath a false floor in his shed. They found police hats, badges, and a list of the stolen Gardner art with its estimated black market value. It was compelling, it was circumstantial, but it wasn't the art. Gentile was a character. He was old, frail, and shuffled around with a walker. He insisted he knew nothing. He claimed it was all a fantasy, a story he made up to seem important. The FBI put him in jail on unrelated gun charges, hoping the pressure would make him talk. He never did. He passed a lie detector test about the art, then failed another. He was a maze of contradictions. He died in 2021, taking whatever secrets he had to the grave. His lawyer said Gentile's last words on the matter were, "Tell the government they ain't getting nothing." Other theories flared up and died out. There was the IRA connection, the idea that the art was shipped to Ireland to fund their cause. There was the theory that it was a sophisticated international art theft ring. There was even a theory that one of the guards, Rick Abath, was the inside man. He had a reputation for showing up to work high. He had apparently thrown a party at the museum a few months before the heist. The night of the robbery, he opened a side door shortly before the thieves arrived, a violation of protocol. He claimed it was a habit from his patrols. The FBI investigated him thoroughly. They polygraphed him. They considered him a primary suspect for years, but they could never prove he was involved. He was either an unlucky kid who made a stupid mistake, or he was the greatest actor the world has ever seen. Through all these decades of chasing ghosts, of listening to old mobsters tell tall tales, the palm print sat in an evidence file. Physical science in a case built on rumor and hearsay. In 1990, a palm print was a difficult thing to work with. The FBI had its automated fingerprint identification system, or AFI. It was a game changer for fingerprints. Investigators could scan a print from a crime scene and run it against a massive database of prints from criminals and government employees. But palm prints were a different story. Your palm has just as many unique ridges and valleys as your fingertips. It's a perfectly valid form of identification. The problem was technology and data. The databases were built for fingerprints, not palms. There was no easy way to scan and search a palm print against millions of others. So, unless you had a specific suspect in mind and could get a copy of their palm print to compare it manually, the print was effectively useless. It was a clue for a future that hadn't arrived yet. The FBI knew the print was there. It was cataloged, it was preserved, but the active investigation focused on human intelligence. It was about turning informants, pressuring suspects, and following the whispers in the Boston underworld. The palm print was a piece of trivia, a footnote in the case file. But technology doesn't stand still. While the Gardner investigation was growing cold, forensic science was getting hotter. Computers got faster, databases grew bigger, digital imaging became sharper. The old AFI system evolved into something much more powerful. The Next Generation Identification System, or NGI. The NGI is a quantum leap forward. It's not just a fingerprint database, it's a massive repository of biometric data. It includes fingerprints, yes, but also palm prints, facial recognition data, and even iris scans. The law enforcement agencies all over the country feed into the system. When someone is arrested, their palm prints are now often taken along with their fingerprints. Military personnel, government employees, and people applying for certain licenses also have their prints in the system. The database has grown to include tens of millions of palm prints. Suddenly, that clue from 1990 wasn't a footnote anymore. It was a live wire. The Gardner palm print could now be digitized and run against the NGI system. A search that would have been impossible in 1990 can now be done in minutes. This changes everything. It shifts the focus from the unreliable memories of old criminals to a single, provable fact. Who touched that frame? A palm print is not like an informant's story. It doesn't change its mind. It doesn't lie to get a better deal. It doesn't get details confused. It is a silent witness that was in the room that night. It saw what happened, and it can place a specific person at the scene of the crime. The person who left that print either helped steal the art or handled it right after it was stolen. There is no innocent explanation. Museum staff were not supposed to handle the frames that way. Even the guards in their normal duties would have no reason to leave a palm print on the side of a frame that held a painting. So the big question is, has the FBI done this? Have they run the print through the NGI system? The FBI is notoriously tight-lipped about ongoing investigations, especially one as high-profile as the Gardner heist. But it is almost certain they have. It would be investigative malpractice not to. Anthony Amori, the Gardner Museum's current director of security, and the man who has dedicated his life to this case, has acknowledged the existence of the print and the advancement in technology. He has never said a match was found, but he has also never said the print has been ruled out as a key piece of evidence. Let's think about the possibilities. What would happen if they got a match? First, it would provide a name. A real name, not a street name or a nickname from a mobster story, but a legal name attached to a government file. For the first time in over 30 years, one of the phantoms from that night would have a face. The investigation would be instantly revitalized. Even if the person is dead, a match is still a massive breakthrough. Let's say the print matches a low-level thief from Boston who died in 1998. Investigators could then build a profile of that person. Who were his associates? Who was in his crew? Where did he live? Who was his family? Every one of those connections is a new lead. It could lead them back to one of the main suspects like Gentile or Merlino, finally providing a concrete link between them and the crime scene. Or it could point in a completely new direction, revealing a group of thieves nobody had ever considered. Imagine the print matches a known associate of Carmelo Merlino's crew. That theory, which has been based on informant testimony, suddenly has scientific evidence backing it up. The focus would narrow intensely on the surviving members of that group and their families. The pressure to talk would become immense. Or what if the print matches someone completely unexpected? Someone with no known mob ties, a petty criminal from another state. That would upend decades of investigative work. Well, it would suggest that everyone has been looking in the wrong place. The entire narrative of the crime would have to be rewritten. This is the power of the palm print. It's a truth machine. It can confirm a long-held suspicion or shatter it completely. In a case defined by uncertainty, it offers the possibility of a definitive answer. Of course, there are also reasons why the palm print might not solve the case. This is not a Hollywood movie. There are no guarantees. The most obvious problem is that the person who left the print may have never had their palm prints taken. If the thief was a career criminal, chances are their prints are in the system. But what if this was their only major crime? What if they lived a quiet life afterward and were never arrested for anything else? What if they died before palm print collection became standard? In that case, the print is still a ghost. Perfect image of the person who doesn't exist in any official records. Another possibility is that the print is partial or smudged. While it was described as a good print, good in 1990 might not be good enough for a perfect algorithmic match in the NGI system. Forensic science is powerful, but it's not magic. If the print is missing key-rich details, it might not generate a conclusive match. It might return a list of potential candidates, but not a single definitive hit. There's also the chance that the print belongs to someone who was authorized to be there, but whose presence was forgotten or not properly documented. Perhaps a restorer who worked on the painting years earlier. This is unlikely. The FBI would have worked tirelessly to eliminate anyone with legitimate access to the art. They would have collected prints from every staff member, past and present, that they could find. But the museum is over a century old. Records from the distant past might be incomplete. Even with a perfect match to a known criminal, the trail could still be cold. If the person died 20 years ago and their known associates are also dead, a name might be all we get. It would solve the mystery of who one of the thieves was, but it might not lead us any closer to the stolen art. And for the Gardner Museum, getting the art back is the ultimate goal. The empty frames that still hang on the museum walls are a constant, painful reminder of what was lost. They were left there by Anne Hawley, the museum's director at the time of the heist, as a symbol of hope for their return. So where does that leave us? The palm print is the best scientific lead the investigation has ever had. It's a lottery ticket, it might be a dud. Or it might be the jackpot. The silence from the FBI could mean a number of things. It could mean they ran the print and got no match, and it's another dead end they don't want to publicize. It could mean they got a match, and it has led to a secret, ongoing investigation that they cannot compromise by talking about it. This is the most hopeful scenario. It suggests that somewhere, agents are quietly working on a new set of leads, all stemming from that single touch 30 years ago. The Gardner Heist is a story about absence. It's about the empty spaces on the walls, the missing masterpieces, and the questions that have no answers. The theories about the mob are compelling stories, full of colorful characters and dramatic tension. But they are just that, stories. The palm print is different. It is not a story. It is a fact. It is a tiny, unique map of a human being left behind on a cold March night. For decades, we've been trying to solve this crime by looking at the big picture, the criminal organizations, the international smuggling rings, the grand conspiracies. Maybe the answer lies in the opposite direction. Maybe it lies in the smallest, most overlooked detail. The microscopic ridges on a man's hand. The sweat and oil he left on a wooden frame. The technology is finally here. The database is live. The question is whether the person who left that print is in it. It's a simple binary question, yes or no. And the answer could change American art history. It could bring the paintings home, or it could confirm that the phantoms of the Gardner Museum are destined to remain phantoms forever, their identities lost to time, leaving only their ghosts behind. The security guard, Rick Abath, is a middle-aged man now. He has moved on from that night, but that night has never moved on from him. He has lived his life under a cloud of suspicion. A match to the palm print would, in a way, set him free. It would prove that the men were strangers, that he was simply a victim of a professional crew. Anthony Amore still goes to work every day at the museum, coordinating the investigation, chasing down every new tip, no matter how outlandish. He has said that solving this crime is his life's work. A match from the palm print would be the culmination of that work. It would be the breakthrough he has spent years hoping for. The art itself is out there, somewhere. Experts believe it is likely still intact. It's too famous to be sold on the open market. Its value lies in its existence, not its sale price. It might be hidden in an attic, a storage locker, or behind a wall. It is waiting. The thieves are old now or dead. The people who know where the art is are running out of time. The statute of limitations for the theft has long since expired. The $10 million reward for information leading to the art's recovery is still on the table, no questions asked. The palm print represents the last, best chance to bridge the gap between then and now. It connects the violent, chaotic night of the robbery to the sterile, digital world of modern forensics. It is the thread that runs through the entire mystery. It is a message in a bottle thrown into the sea in 1990 that has finally washed ashore. We just don't know yet what the message says, but in a case this cold, the possibility of a message is enough to keep the hope alive. The final chapter of the Gardner heist may not be written with a pen. It may be written with an algorithm matching a pattern of ridges and furrows, finally giving a name to the ghost who touched a Rembrandt.